Hi everyone, it's Mari here for the Paper and Ink Boutique. I'm going to be creating a holiday card for you today using the gorgeous Alex Syberia products. You can just see the finished card here on the left, and I had so much fun creating this. If you have these products or if you're interested in picking them up from the store, they're so much fun. Now on the left is the postage stamps cover die, and on the right is a set of 4 stencils called Christmas Postage Stamps Stencils. And these coordinate beautifully together. What I did to start off with was I die cut from that postage stamps cover die from white cardstock. I put it onto a grip mat on my desk, and then I have the first stencil ready to go. I'm also using a piece of HOLTZ grip mat over on the side to hold my ink pads in place as I'm ink blending. I'm also going to be using the Waffle Flower Crafts mini blending brushes. These are the double-ended ones. I love them. They're my favorite mini blenders in my stash. I highly recommend them, and they are available at the Paper and Ink Boutique. Now I'm going to be using my mini distress inks to add some color through these stencils. You can see the colors that I'm using on the right, and these stencils are amazing quality. They're really super thick. And I love using these with my grip mat because my grip mat just holds the stencil in place. I'm holding the opening of the stencil down a little bit onto the paper so that I don't get the bleed underneath the stencil. So that's why I'm adding pressure with my fingertips close to the openings. And really, I use the color guide from the packaging to help me choose the colors because I loved the color combination that they used, and I just think it's so pretty. And of course, when you're using the distress ink line, you have so many options for colors. You could also use your oxides. You could use your Catherine Pooler inks here. Any inks that you have in your stash would work beautifully for ink blending through these stencils. So I'm starting off with the blues, and you can see that I'm trying to vary the colors from a light blue to a dark blue. Some of these are going to have layered colors over top of them. So I'm starting with if it's a layer that's going to have darker over top, I start with the lighter. And I'm also kind of doing a little bit of depth here by adding, where necessary or where I wanted to, a little bit of darker ink around the edges. So here I'm just adding the reds. I'm using Lumberjack Plaid here, which is my favorite red for Christmas projects, holiday projects, for the Santa. I apologize for my voice today. I am just kind of getting over a cold, and I still kind of have a little bit of a croaky voice. So I'm just going to peel that off, and you can see how we have just a really nice impression for that first stencil. And here is the second stencil. It's etched into the stencil there, the number of the stencil that you're using. And there's also a guideline, an A2 size guideline, which is perfect for this die cut piece because it basically is, it's just a little bit smaller than an A2 size card. So you can easily use those guidelines to help you center the die cut piece below or underneath the stencil. Now this is our second layer here that we're going in with. I'm layering the darker blue over top of the lighter blue base. And so I think this is Uncharted Mariner. You can see here I'm using the cube again. I love these cubes for stenciling. They're just perfect. And I actually just saw today that Tim Holtz just revealed the final set of Distress Oxide cubes. So I'll be picking those up from the Paper and Ink Boutique for sure as soon as they're available. And so here you can just see I'm using these brushes again, these wonderful detail brushes to help me get into these areas. Now, every once in a while, I get a little nervous about contaminating a color. So I'll just use a little bit of a Post-it note or Post-it tape, whatever you have that you can use. You can even use masking paper for that. And I'm just going to mask off certain areas so that I don't get the orange color in there. I think that was Rusty Hinge. Now, I'm also going to be using some saltwater taffy for some of the pink areas. And I'll just blend in for that sweet little bird's wing with the saltwater taffy. And what I love so much about the Distress palette is all of the colors are like, you have the depth of the color range to help you figure out what colors you want to use. So I love that. I am using a little bit of, I think it was Wild Honey there for the beak. I'm going in with a darker blue for the belly of the bird. And now I'll start getting some of the details for Santa going here. Lost Shadow is just the perfect color for just a hint of gray. And that's just going to kind of make the beard look, you know, like it's got some depth to it. So I'm going to add just a little bit of that Lost Shadow over the areas where there's some white, including the beard and the fur on the hat and the jacket. And I'm going to use the saltwater taffy for the base layer for the bow on the present. So now we're going in with our next stencil. I'm going to get that into place. And I'm going to use lumberjack plaid again for the baubles on the Christmas tree. And one thing with red, you really have to be careful, or at least I always find it's fairly juicy. It can rub underneath your stencil a little bit, so you just have to be really careful. Use a light hand. You could even tap, stipple it like you would with a stencil brush if you feel more confident with that. I'm going to go in with a little bit of abandoned coral for some of the areas that are going to coordinate with that saltwater taffy, so the hat for the bird, and then the underside of the bow and some of the ribbon on the present. So I'm just getting those in there, going clockwise and counterclockwise with my movements for my blending. And again, the saltwater taffy I'm going to use on the cheek, I believe, for the little bird. And here I should have tapped. I shouldn't have gone with a swirl. I should have just pounced, because I'm unfortunately going to find out that there was a little bit of bleed, but I'm going to show you how to fix that later. And I'm going to use a little bit of, pardon me, a darker ink, a darker red that I have in my stash. I do not have aged mahogany distress ink. I need to get that. I'll have to request that from the store because I think it was out of stock when I checked. But that would have been the perfect color to blend here for the pants. So I started off with a Gina K color, and then I went over it with lumberjack plaid, just to kind of create sort of a blend of color for some contrast for his pants. And then this one is Barely There from Gina K, but any light pink. You could actually use Tattered Rose, which I didn't have in a distress ink color either. So now I often clean my stencils between colors, or if I don't want to contaminate an area. So, you know, if I've got black on there, I'll clean my stencil. That stencil that I just cleaned, I was finished with that. So I cleaned it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and I put it off to the side. And now this is the next stencil. I think this is the last one. So I'm going to add some of that reddish brown, which this would be aged mahogany if I had that color. And I'm just going to go ahead and tape off some of the areas and do a little bit of black soot. And black is a really, really strong color when you're using a stencil. I like to tap with it so that it doesn't bleed underneath. And you'll see me doing that here. I'm going to tap, tap, tap in this tiny little area like a stipple movement instead of a swirl or a clockwise, counterclockwise. Tapping for the boot. And then I will also tap for the glasses when I'm ready to add the glasses in there as well. So there you can just see how this is coming together so nicely. All of the details being added by these stencils, which is genius. I love the size of this postage die. I love the size of this. I love the size of the rectangles. They're nice and large. And these images are so, so adorable. So I'm guessing that Alex Syberia is going to continue to add other themes for this base die. So now we're going to put that stencil back on there again. This is the same stencil. I had cleaned it and now I'm just putting it back on again. It's good to clean, especially like between colors, or if you're using a strong color like black. I like to take that stencil off and give it a wipe and then put it back on, just so that I don't, smear anything or get ink on my clothing or whatever. And again, using the black soot to add a few details here to some of the areas. Love how that turned out. I think it looks so, so good. And I'm going to add a few more details here. I'm just cleaning my stencil again. This is the same stencil, putting it back on. And now I'm going to add the details to the brim of the hat there on the bird. I'm going to bring in some gray. I think this is hickory smoke, tapping again here in those areas where it's super small. And now I'm going to be using some texture paste Twinkle. And so over the present, there's these little open dots. You could do this in black, you could do this in any color of ink, but I really wanted to add some sparkle. So I put that texture paste Twinkle, and over that I'm adding some rock candy glitter. And I'm going to show you here how shiny and pretty that is once I get this all cleaned up and put away. I love that. And I really love adding some sparkle and glitter to festive cards. I think that's fun. Holiday cards, that kind of thing, special occasions. It's nice to add that glitter. So you can see how pretty that is on there. I really like how that looks. But I also wanted to add some more sparkle and shine. So you'll see me do that in a minute. Before I put my Twinkle paste away, I'm going to make sure I get one of those rubber bands around the rim so that that doesn't dry out on me. Now that my Twinkle paste is dry, I'm going to put this into my MISTI. I do have a waffle flower grip mat in my MISTI. I love that because it does hold my paper in place. I'm going to put the magnet on there too because my mat needs to be cleaned. So it is going to do a good job of holding that, but I'm just using some extra insurance there with the magnet. Now this is another stamp set from Alex Syberia. It's called the Postage Stamps stamp set, and it's going to allow you to add all of this detailed stamping over top of your stenciled images. And you can do this however you want. I used the guide on the package to place my different text, images, all the different things that you can put on here. So super cool. And I'm using my VERSAFINE CLAIR Nocturne ink. It's a really nice ink for stamping text or anything where you've got fine print or details because it just stamps those details so nicely. So that is a really great ink for that. I'm going to give that a nice press, and now you can just see all of those different little sentiments and details, imagery, the stars, the cancellation lines, and so on. So good. I'm going to add a little bit of Wink of Stella for some extra sparkle and shine. This is clear Wink of Stella, so I'm going to add that to the beard, the fur on the suit, and the hat, and anywhere else here that I feel like I want to add a little bit of sparkle and shine to my project. Now I'm going to add a little bit of, this is Stardust Stickles, and I'm going to add that to the fur on the hat, the coat of Santa. I'm going to add a few little dots of sparkle to the cap of the bird, and then just a few little dots around the Christmas tree. This last Alex Syberia set I'm using is the Merry Mail Stamp and Coordinating Die set. This is fantastic. You can see that there's actually a stamp image there with a coordinating die, a bunch of sentiments, and all of these different little images that are very festive and super cute. You can definitely go to the Paper and Ink Boutique website to see samples, and you can also go to the Alex Syberia site to look at samples for this as well. So what I did was I stamped using VERSAMARK ink and white embossing powder on red paper, and die cut that out for a sentiment. I added some foam tape onto the back of my card front, and we have a finished project. Friends, I have listed in the description box below all of the products that I've used for my project today from the Paper and Ink Boutique, so make sure you check that out. I really wanted to finish off my card with some enamel dots from my stash. This is why we buy all of the enamel dots we can and put them in our stash, because they are perfect for finishing off a card. So I added them over that cheek where I had that bleed of the ink on the bird, a little bit of a sparkle to the bauble, a pink to the nose of the Santa, and a little center to the knot on the bow. And that's going to add an enamel dot to every one of the squares on the postage stamp areas. And that's a finished card. Friends, I had so much fun. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were inspired, and I hope that you will check out Alex Syberia either in the store at the Paper and Ink Boutique in Calgary or online. Thank you so much, friends. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.